We're still letting people in. We've got quite a few, and I am going to be letting people in. For those that don't know me, I'm Joan Raymond, president of Writers of Kern, but this morning you're going to hear from Donna Harris, our vice president. She's going to take the first part of the meeting. So anyway, go ahead, Donna. I'm going to keep watching to see if anybody needs to be let in here.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Like Joan said, I'm Donna Harris. I'm Vice President of Writers of Kern. And I just want to welcome you today to October's meeting and workshop. And I'm so happy to see so many beautiful faces. I'm looking at 32 people right now?
35.
35, wow, okay. So that is amazing. And I just want to say good morning to you all. I'm gonna wait a couple seconds just to make sure everybody's all in, because I wanted to say hi first and foremost to our guests and visitors. So for our guests and visitors, and that is people who've never been to a Writers of Kern meeting before, or if you have not been to a meeting in a long, long time, we just want to give you a special welcome and let you know that we appreciate you being here with us today. Also, if you are a visitor or a guest, tell us where you're from. We want to know where you're visiting us from. You can write that in the chat box. Let us know basically where you're from, or because we've had people from all over come and visit us, especially since we've been on Zoom, we've been online.
We've got Sarah from Ohio right now, and we've got New York City, Maryland. Looks like we've got coast to coast. Let's see, West Richland, Washington, Los Angeles, Fort Collins, Colorado, BC, Canada, Sheffield, England. Awesome.
Amazing.
I probably said that wrong. I apologize, Diane. San Francisco. Let's see where else. I'm from Bakersfield, but you know, that's
yeah.
So that's really cool. I love, you know, sorry, Donna, I was gonna, Calgary, Alberta. Welcome, Jeff. That's awesome. We used to meet in person, and then obviously because of what's going on, we're not, but we've been able to reach so many more people, and it's awesome because before it was just a small cluster of people from Bakersfield and Kern County, and now it's, you know, lots of people from everywhere. I'm so excited. Okay, I'll be quiet.
That's amazing. No, no, that's absolutely amazing. And a lot of these places I've never been before. I've never been to Canada. I've never been to England. So it's exciting to see people from those areas come and visit us today. So I'm going to move on with our agenda, and I'm going to go to submissions, rejections, and success stories. So if we've had anybody who has submitted anything from our last meeting till now, or if you're new or you're a visitor and you've also submitted, just go ahead and raise your hand for me. I just want to see everybody who submitted. Wow. I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing a lot of hands up. So yes, okay. So I'm seeing a lot of submissions, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to give you a round of applause. Everybody, please give a virtual round of applause for those who submitted, because that is excellent. It's amazing to see so many people submitting, because that's what we need to do as writers. Once you get something done, you need to go ahead and submit it, because you never know who's going to accept that submission. Moving on to rejections. Okay, so we like to congratulate, with Writers of Kern, we like to congratulate those who have been rejected, because it means that you are trying. So has anybody had any rejections in the last month since our last meeting? I see Julie has her hands up. Let's see.
Kay has her hand up. Let's see. I'm trying to see. Let's see. So far, those are the two I see.
Well, let's give them a virtual round of applause, because when you've been rejected, it means that you're trying. Those rejections, like with the rejections that I can paper a wall with them, but that's because I've been trying. I've been trying to get my name out there. I've been trying to get myself out there, because everything we write as creatives, we need to make sure that we are putting ourselves out there. It's very important. So moving on to success stories. So if you've had a success story, meaning that you submitted something, you have not been rejected, you've actually been accepted, or you have a new book coming out, you've self-published a book, please let us know in the chat. Let us know if you've had any success stories in the last month, or in the last, this morning you could have had something come in that you want to share with us.
I'm going to unmute Sandy for just a second because I know there's a couple people in here. Sandy, can you see you're unmuted? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the copies of the Christmas Chicken Soup for the Soul have come out, and you can order those on Amazon, or if you want it for cheaper, you can message me, and I have like 120 copies.
But the reason you have that, Sandy, you're not just promoting Chicken Soup for the Soul.
No,
right?
I have a story in here. The story is called James. This whole book is all Christmas stories that people have written. And so Chicken Soup for the Soul is a wonderful way for people to break into being published. And if you go to their website, they have a whole list of upcoming books, and they're wonderful people to work with, and I would highly recommend going and looking at their list of books and submitting something.
Thank you, Sandy, and congratulations. Does anybody else have anything that they've been a book out or anything like that? Because this group is small enough right now that we can unmute a few people. Annis, hold on a second. Let me unmute you. I sent you a thing. Can you unmute it? There you go.
There I am. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'm late because I just came from a meeting on the book that's coming out, Enough, Say Their Names. And the great news is that this book is on the presses and it'll be ready for distribution October 30th. So I'll be sending out information about how to order and our website and all that good stuff so that you can partake of this groundbreaking book. It is a book of poetry and narrative that speaks to, is inspired by the board up artwork and photography from the protests around the nation here in 2020. And we're excited it's coming out before November 3rd. All right, thank you.
Annis, can you put the name of the book in the chat so
I'll
people?
be happy to, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to mute her just before she finished. Anybody else? Anybody self-publish a book? Anybody? Donna, are you seeing anybody?
Jerry Evans was accepted into the upcoming Walk anthology.
Okay, and then I also saw Julie said that she has a couple of, let's see, she was accepted for the anthology and for 2 poems.
Okay.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, so let's give them a virtual round of applause. That was amazing. And I was looking at the chat and I was seeing that Debbie Meeks said her husband was accepted to the anthology, so Richard Meeks was accepted into the anthology. So I was looking at that. So if you don't know what our Walk anthology is, it's basically an anthology of stories from Walk members. And a lot of our members have been accepted. They submitted and they have stories and poems and useful moments, which we're going to get to in our Walk anthology. So I just want to congratulate those who have been accepted and just, give them a round of applause. Okay, so next we're going to, Joan, do you think we have a space for breakout rooms at this time?
I think we're going to keep moving forward. If we've got time at the end before we take a break, maybe we'll do it then, but we did have 95 people register for this, so we reached capacity. So I think we're just going to keep moving forward and see what happens.
Okay, all right. So the next thing on our agenda is museful moments. So our museful moments, we're a writing organization, we're a writers club. So what we are going to do is write. Not surprising. What we're going to do with our museful moments is basically I give a word or a phrase, and you write to that. And you get 3 minutes to write. And then, with time allowing, and with so many people, we're going to see if we're going to be able to get some people to read some of those entries or some of those useful moments. So if you're new here, that's why I'm explaining it to you. So the word that I'm going to give today for our useful moment is menu. So you're going to get 3 minutes to write on menu. And those 3 minutes start. Make sure you got a pen and paper. Start now.
For those of us, for those of you who have just joined us, we're doing useful moments, and we give our writers 3 minutes to write, because I know a couple people that have been asking, is this the memoir session? No, that starts in about 15 to 20 minutes. So we do a short business meeting first, and then we go on to the memoir session.
Okay, so our 3 minutes are up. That was my phone letting me know that our 3 minutes are up. So if there are any brave souls who would love to read what they have written in those 3 minutes, raise your hand. I'm going to try to catch you. See if you want to.
Cleo, do you have your hand up? Okay, so I'm going to unmute Cleo.
Okay.
Hello. Oh, hi. So I need a menu of options for my life. I need to be able to choose. I feel like I keep choosing or having the same exact life, but I know there must be other options. I had a dream a long time ago that I was in a hallway with 12 doors, and each door was a life choice. And I think I must have gone through the wrong door back then, and I long to return to the hallway of choices. Please give me back the menu. I need to choose something that I'm not allergic to. This thing has been tasteless. I look forward to a new dish, even dessert. Okay, so where is the salt and pepper? I also need basil and rosemary.
Very good.
Excellent. I love that. That was so great. All right. Is there anybody else who wants to read? Let's see. Joan, do you happen to see anybody else?
I see some people that, okay, there's Sarah. Are you, Sarah, you want to? Okay, hold on, let me unmute you. Usually we have about 3 people. Sometimes we have like 10 people at the same time. So, okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, mine is similar to hers. Mine says, my life soon became a series of drop-down menus of tasks to be completed. Where did I even begin? How would I fit it all in? Was it even worth the effort? The never-ending list of options before me consisted of both past due and urgent items, things that I should do and things that should have been done a year ago. I wanted to make my life easier, but nothing ever seemed to work. I just kept rearranging my menu and fighting the urge to delete all of it. I felt little joy in life, including while doing what I wanted to do. Instead, life became a series of overwhelming tasks broken down in obligations that went unfulfilled over and over again.
Wow. Awesome.
Wow. That was cool. That was powerful. I really enjoyed that. That was really good.
I know it's really hard, but yes, if you have something to share, and if you shared last month, then we usually pick different people to share this month, but I know it's hard, but just remember you're just reading. Don't think about all the people watching.
I see Tammy, can you unmute Tammy?
Where's, oh, right there. Oops, I did the wrong person. Sorry, it just moved all of a sudden. Okay, go ahead, Tammy. Hopefully it's the right Tammy.
Yeah.
Okay.
At my old job that I loved so much before I retired, the staff cafeteria had a gigantic menu posted above the buffet serving station. However, after working there for years and years, the same old odd trays looked less and less appetizing. And it was then, one day as I stood there with a dull, blank look on my face, that the cook suggested she make something special for me as a surprise. She made me a mushroom and tofu taco. That was the beginning of a special and unique bond, and that she loved to cook healthy, and I loved to eat. Lady Lacey spoiled me for the next decade or so. She became my special friend, mother, and confidant. The menu on the wall listed burgers and chili cheese fries, yet I love the specialty of motherly love.
Aw,
That is really cute.
very
I love it.
good.
That's amazing. We have so many creative people writing today, and I am in awe of everything that I've heard. That is so amazing.
I think we have
So
time for one more if there's anybody else.
let's see. Julie, do you see Julie with her
Hold
hand
on, I
up?
just went really far. Okay, there's Julie, got you. Okay.
Okay, mine's kind of lighthearted. I love to read everything, and a menu can be a feast for my eyes. If only I could try everything. I always look for something different, something I've never had before. I often ask the server to leave an extensive menu after I've ordered so I can continue feasting after I've ordered.
That is great. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone who shared. Thank you everybody who participated. This is so amazing. I always write stuff, and I'm never as brave as you guys are to share it. But I think that is so amazing that not only that you have written something amazing, but that you were willing to share it with us, because I love to hear it and I love listening to it.
Donnie, can
So,
I interrupt you for a second? Sorry.
go ahead.
When you get to the next announcement on Open Mic Mondays, Annis is the one that's gonna do that announcement, so.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
anyway, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Okay, I lost my train of thought now, though. Okay, so then I'm just gonna move on to announcements. Okay. So for our first announcement is Open Mic Mondays, and like Joan said, our lovely Annis is going to talk about Open Mic Mondays.
Well, we just had a really great Open Mic Monday, our first time back in the first Monday of October. And we had 11 people who showed up, and 9 brave folks read. That's what made me think maybe I should jump in and say something about this. Donnie, I didn't realize you had it on the agenda already. But anyway, it wasn't nearly as bad as folks thought it might be. It's not intimidating at all. The group was very welcoming with their praise and comments. And if you have something that you would like to share with us and you're a Writers of Kern member, then please be sure to sign up to come in to Open Mic Monday. The next one will be November 2nd. It is from 7 p.m. to 8:15 p.m. And you have to be registered and a WALK member in order to participate. If you would like to be in the audience and just listen and encourage each other, then please sign up as well. All right.
And how can they sign up, Annis? Do you send an email out, or how do you do that?
Thank you for asking that. Yes, I will send an email out with the link for registration over Eventbrite. And then after that, Eventbrite sends out reminders. They'll send one out, I think the Sunday before, and then a couple hours before the event on Monday. So look for that email from me. Also, if you signed up last time, you can go back to the very same link. I think it's the same link every time to sign up. But you'll get more information from me personally, and also it'll be on the social media. It'll be on the Facebook page. I see Sarah has a question about how to become a member. Is Sandy going to talk about that?
I will address that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you Monday night on November 2nd.
So, Anna,
Donna?
you said November 2nd?
Yes.
Yes, it's on the agenda.
2nd.
Oh, yep. Sorry,
It's-
guys. I put the wrong number. It's the 2nd.
Okay, it's the first Monday of the month.
I
Open
don't know how
mic
to read a
Mondays.
calendar.
There you go. Open mic Mondays, first Monday of the month. All right, a two can look like a 7. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
So Open Mic Mondays is another perk is to be a member, just like critique groups. And Joan, you're going to address how we become members.
Yes. Okay, so do you want me to just do the rest of the announcements from here?
I was gonna do. You can do that. The rest of the announcements. I can do fall writing contest though if you want.
Okay, why don't you do fall writing contest and then I'll do the rest of it.
Okay. Do you want me to do it now? All right, so for our fall writing contest, our update is that the fall writing contest, all submissions are in and they are with the judges. The judges have been assembled and everything is going according to plan. So our fall writing contest winners will be announced December 12th at our members only Bring Your Own brunch. And that's going to be exciting. So if you are a member, make sure that you sign up for that, you register for that. That's going to be out soon. And that's when our fall writing contest winners will be announced.
Okay, so for those of you that are asking about how to become a member, my suggestion is send an email to what is it, Sandy? Can you write it? Can you write the email? I want to say it's membership@writersofkern.com. But also if you go to our website, which is writersofkern.com, there's a page that's to be a member. But if you send it directly to Sandy, she was the one talking about the chicken soup for the soul. She'll write her email in the chat part. And then right now it's just easier to say that, because if you're interested, go ahead and do that. But our club's been around since, what, 1996, I guess? And so we've been around for quite a while. Anyway, I was going to do the other announcements, and I saw that our guest speaker has arrived. So for the Walk Anthology update, for all of those that submitted to the anthology, obviously submissions period is closed. We had a ton of submissions, and always like Bakersfield, we had almost 50 of them in the last 48 hours before we closed submissions. So for those of you that waited very patiently to find out if you were either accepted or declined, thank you. The anthology is moving forward. We've sent out publication agreements. And the next thing is our editors will be doing a little bit of editing. Should we tell them the name of it, Donnie?
I think, yes, I think we should.
Okay, so the name of the publication, and it was supposed to be out in December, and we've changed that, but the name of the publication will be Pathway to the Heart. And that came from one of the images that we got. We had probably over 50 images, and we were only able to pick one. So if you submitted an image, it was thank you. We felt it was hard. That was the hardest part, because picking one image out of all of them. But anyway, the name of it is Pathway to the Heart, and we've changed the publication date to the month of February, right before Valentine's Day. So just, hang tight. We're working on it. We've got a very small group of dedicated volunteers, but, I can't push them any more than they can go. Plus, publishing in December with Kindle, KDP, is kind of rough. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks to get a book, and we definitely want to put a good product out there. And, we need to have proofreaders, which, we have all that in place, but they're step by step. So if you are in it, and I know Gary had said something when we asked about success stories. Gary Evans is going to be published for the very first time. And I know some other people are going to be published for the very first time in our anthology. And that's exciting to me, to see brand new people get published. And, you know, it's kind of that cool thing when you get to hold the book in your hand and you're like, I'm in here, I'm a real person. Not really. I mean, you're still a real person before that, but it's like you see all that in print. And I remember the first time I had an article in the newspaper, I couldn't even read it. I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't even read it. I cried, but anyway. So that's the fall, and that's the walk anthology. So if there's questions, you can send an email to me at president@writersofkern.com, and I will answer them. But for the most part, you know, we're moving forward step by step. It's just taking a little longer. Sandy did put her information in the chat, membership@writersofkern.com, or she actually put her personal email in there. So if you need to get a hold of her and say, hey, how do I become a member, then she can give you all the details. Let's see. And if there's questions, we ask you, you know, we, look, my sticky notes and everything on here. We did have an agenda. So the email that came out had the agenda. So if you do go back to your email and print that out or look at it, all of the different people to contact, they're on the back of the agenda, or, you know, you'll see them. So, and then if you have questions, just general questions, email them to info@writersofkern.com. A lot of times people, for some reason, will email to submissions or something else. And even though we do check those, we prefer you to send it to info. So let's see. Julie says, signing the publishing agreement for the anthology feels substantial. Yeah. The publisher's name for our anthology, it is Walk Press. It is us. We are the publisher. Dennis, who's on here, Dennis and I came up, or Dennis came up with the name Walk Press years and years ago. And we thought it was an amazing name, so we've kept it. So all of the publications that Walk puts out, from our anthologies to when we did the Young Writers of Kern anthologies, are all published through Walk Press. So we are going to take, I mean, you know, we're still going to be on here talking, but we're going to take like a 3 to 5 minute break. If anybody needs to go grab a cup of coffee, you know, yep, Bill has his. And Bill, don't feel like you're, you know, the odd man out, you're in Bakersfield, because a lot of us are in Bakersfield. So anyway. For those who got here late, we were asking where people were from, and they were from basically many different countries and lots of different states. So that's really exciting. So anything else? Can you guys, anybody have any questions while we're taking this like couple minutes? And I'm gonna, Alia, I'm going to unmute you. Make sure I get you right there. So you should be unmuted. Is this the coffee moment? Yes, this is the coffee moment, Cleo. You can refill your coffee and you won't miss anything. It's interesting being online, because when we used to be in person, you know, then we had that one moment, and, you know, people could get up, walk around a little bit and ask questions. That's when most people ask questions. And now we're all like staring at each other. So how are you this morning, Alia?
I'm doing just fine. I'm just getting my head on straight. I'm not a morning person. And although it is 10 o'clock, it might appear very late to some of you, especially people who have children. This is very late. This is actually early for me. So, good morning. I will be waking up as we go through this.
Somebody's asking, Sandy's asking about the print behind you.
Oh, so this is, I guess some of you may have read my book, Home Baked. This comes from that story. It's my dad's, the logo that my dad designed for my family's brownie business. And it's a drawing of my mom eating a brownie while she was pregnant with me. Which is another story. But my folks actually used that to make t-shirts back in the day in 1977, which I have reissued. So if anybody wants a t-shirt, I got them.
Yeah, I believe in the email that went out to everybody, we had links to get a hold of you and your other story that you're going to be talking about and
Mhm.
whatnot. So
Yeah, I'm
well,
very easy to find on social media, and my email address is just aliavolz@gmail.com if anyone wants to contact me for any reason. I'm a social.
can you go ahead and put that in the chat just so you know?
Sure.
I mean, I know your name is showing up, but just makes it easier.
Mhm.
And then as soon as you do that, I will introduce you formally.
Great.
Oh, wait, sorry, while you're doing that, I'll talk about upcoming. Upcoming, yes, November 2nd, because I can't read a calendar correctly, is the next Open Mic Monday. November 21st, which is our next meeting, we've got Jack Peters, The Goldfish That Barks, 7 Actions to Distinguish Yourself for Success. December 5th, another Open Mic Monday. December 12th is our members only, Bring Your Own Brunch. And then at the November meeting, I will be announcing 2021 events. And we have some amazing speakers lined up. So our meetings will still be free. They will still be online. And so you don't have to be a member to attend. But anyway, we're just trying to do as much as we can for writers and, you know, bring a meeting to them. For no charge or anything like that. So to go forward, we have Alia Volz, Memoir, The Art of Questioning Everything. And when she and I talked a couple of, I don't know, it was last week or something, because we always do a tech check with all the speakers. And she told me that she had just found out she won the Golden Poppy Award. So I'm going to ask you just to briefly say what that's about, because I mean, I read what it's about, but it'd be better coming from you.
Sure.
So congratulations, that's very awesome.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm going to, and you live in the Bay Area?
I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah, in San Francisco. So she's also a California person here.
Born and bred.
Anyway, so go ahead, welcome, Alia.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, the Golden Poppy is an annual award issued to books in various genres by the California Independent Booksellers Alliance. It used to be the NCIBA, the Northern California Independent Booksellers Alliance, and the SCIBA. And this year, the two of them united into CALIBA. So it's a statewide association, and they award it to various books out that year. So this was for my book, Home Baked. Should I go ahead and start the talk?
Yes.
Okay, let me share my screen with you, because we're going to do a little PowerPoint. Let me get back to the beginning. Okay, cool. So we're here to talk about how to drive your memoir forward with a series of questions, and the questions can change, and if you follow it through, you can end up with a really gripping and exciting plot, kind of like we'll talk about whodunits a little bit and how this works. So I'll just briefly talk about my book before moving on to the essay that we're going to take apart. So this is my memoir, Home Baked, My Mom, Marijuana, and the Stoning of San Francisco. It came out earlier this year, right in the middle of COVID. So thank you, world, for that one. But it's a family story. It's follows my mother's pioneering contribution to the medical marijuana movement. My folks in the 1970s had the first high volume cannabis edibles business. They were distributing upward of 10,000 brownies per month during the 70s, which was just a really kind of frothy and complex time politically. And then when the AIDS crisis hit, their business evolved into the very dawn of medical marijuana. So it follows that movement from party drug to palliative medicine and into the modern cannabis world that we know today. So it doesn't take a genius to see that there's some kind of story there, right? And all that material. I was just born into this world. Obviously, there's material for a memoir, but that, if some of you, I would imagine, are familiar with Vivian Gornick's very helpful book, The Situation in the Story, what that is the situation. It's material. But what is going to pull us through that story is a much harder question than I imagined going into it, and then I think a lot of us realize. It took me 12 years total to write this book, and I would say about 9 of those years were not spent figuring out what the story was, but that was the work that I needed to do during that time. So once I figured out what the driving question was that was going to pull me through this whole narrative, I knew I had a book. I finished the proposal, sold it very quickly, and wrote the rest in a year. So 10 years, 10 years or 12 years, and 9 of them figuring out what that arc is. Because with material like this, and with all of our lives, we have very complex lives, right? This could be 5 different stories. There's the personal story, the political story. Do you start it with my birth? Do I start with my mom's birth? Do I start with the dawn? Do I start with the beginning of marijuana prohibition? Where does it end? So any situation can have a whole variety of stories, and figuring out what that thread is that you're going to be following through it is really the whole question. It's the hardest question, the most important question. So I'm going to share with you some tricks that I figured out along the way for finding it and for following it and letting it evolve. Unfortunately, no amount of tricks make this process easy. It's just hard. Writing is hard. But there are some things that we can do to smooth out our journey and help us along the way. And I have found that the most useful thing is to ask a lot of questions and interrogate your material and interrogate yourself, and let those questions guide the narrative. So that's what we're going to talk about. To do that, I'm going to take apart my essay Snakebit, which was selected for the Best American Essays 2017 by Leslie Jameson, and we'll take it apart paragraph by paragraph, because this was basically, in writing this essay, was how I discovered this method. So I find it to be useful for explaining. Also, I think sometimes really polished writing, it can look like a magic trick. And so I have found it so helpful to see writers take apart their process and actually tell us how they got there. It doesn't just come, it doesn't just come out. So, okay, Snakebit. Let's see, there we go. Here's what we're going to be looking at, is how an evolving series of questions can give us an exciting kind of whodunit, murder mystery type structure. So a mystery is generally propelled by questions. And the ones that we're going to follow in this essay, but that I think are fairly standard. You have a mystery of the inciting incident. A body is found. Someone goes missing. An object goes missing. A mystery. The sleuth tries the first most obvious option and researches one angle, hits a dead end. There's always a dead end. Then the next angle, the next question he's going to follow or she's going to follow is probably going to lead to a red herring. We're going to go down the wrong path. That eventually is going to lead us to a dead end, but also a clue. And the clue is going to start us down the right path, where we'll find another clue. Now we're hot on the trail. You find the criminal, there's a confession, it ends with a moment of clarity. It's like the most standard possible murder mystery type structure. Well, turns out this works in a personal essay as well. Here's how Snakebit starts, and this is the inciting question. And I guess I'll just read it to you, and we'll focus on a few lines. We meet a fat diamondback 5 minutes down the trail. He's stretched across the path, dozing in the shade of a juniper bush. I'm an adult, so I want to act like one, but I'm crying so hard I can't inhale, and snot is dribbling into my mouth. Okay, so something is wrong. It takes me 20 minutes to inch past the viper while his tongue whips the air. After that, I search out a long, heavy stick to thump on the ground and jostle the creosote scrub before passing. My husband, Kevin, and our 2 friends are sympathetic, but my pace is agonizingly slow, and they drift ahead. I hear them chattering, always around the next bend, while blood bangs through my head like a taiko drum. Everyone else is fine. There's something wrong with me. WTF is my problem. The whole park is rattlesnake color, and it's breeding season. We camp among the mating snakes for 3 nights. We hear no rattles, receive no death threats. Exhaustion renders my terror quiet and viscous. Snake, I breathe, as we ease past yet another languid viper looped beside the trail. They're draped everywhere, as in my dreams. The last one we cross is pasted to the frontage road. It must have bitten an oncoming tire. Its mouth is spread open like a flower, the tiny yellow points of its teeth splayed. The pink flesh of its throat is turning to leather in the desert sun. So this gives us our question. There's a problem. And always notice also that I'm showing you that this is a problem, not telling you this is a problem. I'm doing that with sensory details and vivid, almost dreamlike, almost hallucinatory writing around it to communicate with you that the amount of stress and fear. But the basic question is introduced here. What is wrong with me? Here's the dead end. Joshua Tree is such a powerful place, Dad says in our next "so how the heck have you been" conversation. Big energy there. I'm jealous you got to go. Now that I'm grown, Dad and I are long distance phone friends. We talk several times a year, our conversation clotted with jokes. We're both more comfortable this way, knowing we can hang up and return to our separate lives. I tell him about camping during breeding season. "Oh, you must have loved that," he chuckles. "You used to cry if you had to walk past a rope on the ground." "Remember the time you got bit?" I ask. So here's me following that first, what I think is going to be the right direction. He hesitates. I picture his face squinting into the empty space eaten into his memory by the double whammy of epilepsy and psychedelic drugs. "Not sure I know what you're talking about." "How could you forget? You showed me the fang marks when I was little and it scared me to death. I never got over it." "You must be thinking of someone else." I don't believe him. We argue about it, politely, since we both come to value our friendly distance. Then I call Mom so she'll take my side. Dad forgets everything and she remembers everything. That's how it works. "Not that I know of, honey," she says. "Your father did some dumb shit, but I think he steered clear of rattlesnakes." So I've hit a dead end, right? I think that, I've got this phobia. It's fairly extreme. I think what seems obvious is that it's tied to this memory of my dad being bitten by a snake. But he wasn't, was he? Now, here's where I want to introduce one other idea before we go further. But here's where the story gets interesting. And so what I want to communicate to you is that as you're looking for the through line in your material, look for the question, look for the mystery, look for the thing you don't understand about what you remember. Because that, in my experience, is the most fertile information. So one of the things I want to talk about is that I think, in high school, in college, we're taught to write these position papers where we take a position on a subject. We know what our point that we want to make is before we even start. And everything we write is to lead up to that point. We have a destination in mind. But there's a much more interesting and sophisticated way of going about it. And that is especially effective with personal essays, which is to write toward the mystery, right into what you don't know. So when I realized that there was something wrong with the way that I remembered this moment, it was like, ding, there's something there. There's something I don't understand. Joshua, okay, I was already there. Dad sits on the edge of his bed. I'm curled on the rug at his feet, an Alice in Wonderland pop-up book open on my lap. I'm 6 years old, and I do not understand why his eyes look so strange. His ice blue irises walled behind dilated pupils. He has just returned from a week alone in the woods, what he calls a vision quest. He's come home snake bit. Dad rolls up the left leg on his lavender bell bottoms to show me the weeping punctures. His calf is swollen, the skin waxy and yellow like pork rind. Blue rings moondog the fang marks, and raised gray veins jitter to his ankle. I'm sweating in my footy pajamas, the canary yellow ones that are so small they force my toes to curl. I've been told countless times that rattlesnakes are deadly, so I don't understand why he's still alive. He could die in front of me. The hot flannel constricts around my body, and I tear at the metal snap at my throat. How could this, possibly the most vivid memory of my childhood, inspiration for decades of ophidiophobic behavior, be false? So here's the next question. The moment feels solid in my history, a flagstone lodged between our trip to Disneyland and the death of my first cat. If I invented this memory, I don't know why or when. The question gets under my skin. I write essays about my father, scour childhood memories, and peek between my fingers at YouTube videos of snakes, scaring myself so badly one night that I run to find Kevin. You'll give yourself nightmares, he chides. I already have them. So my question has evolved from why do I have this phobia to why did I invent a false memory? It's a much more interesting question, frankly. And I'm just going to let go and put aside the why do I have this phobia question. And I'm going to try and figure out why did I invent a false memory? Now, this could be a red herring, and that is just fine. I want to point out that confusion on the page is a really helpful device, showing that I don't understand what's going on, showing that I have questions I can't answer. It builds empathy, and it invites the reader along on this mystery with you, right? Why do we read murder mysteries? Why do we read whodunits? It's so that we can try to figure it out. We always want to try to beat the sleuth to the answer as readers. It's exciting to have but if the sleuth knows the answer, that's no fun to read, right? So we're there so that we can go on this journey of discovery with the sleuth, and the same thing can apply to personal essay and memoir. And this is how you create that. You express to the reader that you are confused, and this is why. Snakes take up inordinate space in my memory bank. I recall 52 specific encounters with wild snakes, a card deck of terror. Each image is crystalline. The snake's pattern, the sunlight gleaming on its skin, whether its body was looped or unfurled, or some disorienting combination of both, whether it darted, oozed, or froze. Again, vivid language. I'm showing you my terror. And this is a way of setting up the stakes. This is what we're here for, right? I'm trying to express to the reader what this problem means and why it's important. Equally sharp are times when I thought I saw a snake and it turned out to be something else, a lizard, a half-buried root, because my mind thought snake and triggered phobic hyper-awareness. My highlight reel even includes photography from nature books and some truly awful YouTube clips. The viper whose decapitated head bites its own dying body. The snake that eats a spider, which then consumes it from the inside out. The infant who sleeps peacefully on a platform surrounded by hooded cobras. So it's not enough just to say I'm afraid of snakes, because what if the reader isn't? I mean, you might think this is a totally boring subject, but I'm going to bring you into my terror. So here's the question that I've set up. I see I'm getting some questions in the chat, which I'm not able to follow very well as I am looking at this.
We're gonna do that at the end.
Excellent. That's what I want to say to people. So ask away and I'll look at them at the end, or just save up your questions. And Joan, you'll let me know if there's anything urgent that comes through.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the question that I've set up. When did this phobia start? I want to anchor my fear in a moment in time, but I can't find a sturdy one. When I was a child, we lived in a former boarding house, a long ago stagecoach stop on the Eel River in Northern California, an hour's drive from the nearest small town. The boarding house stood on wild land with majestic boulders, acres of mossy oak and dusty manzanita, and a cool green river, gentle in summertime. Peacocks nested on our shaded porch, and we had a box freezer for making fruit slushies. Behind the house was an empty chicken coop. My parents, bought a dozen chicks from the feed store in town and brought them home in a cardboard box, together with a metal feeder and incubation lights. Peeping yellow puffballs with sharp little beaks. I gave them silly names like Fluffy and Muffy and Sunshine, though they were impossible to tell apart. I remember their smell, not fetid like grown chickens, but fresh and sweet. Miniature talons squeezing my fingers. Sorry. Unearthly softness against my cheek. So taking 2 paragraphs to just bring you into my world, give you a little bit of setting. I want to point out that I'm not going into my entire history. I'm not telling you when I was born or where. I'm not telling you where, I'm telling you a little bit about the house and the setting, because it's about to become about snakes. So it's just 2 paragraphs. And you're not even going to find out much about my family. You won't even find out about them dealing pot. It's very specific. We're very specifically on a different track, right? Why did I invent a memory? Where did it begin? One night, a snake crept into the coop and massacred the tiny chicks. It left one survivor flailing in bloody dirt. Half the chicken's leg had been ripped away and its screams were tinny and tireless. Dad drowned it to end its suffering. Traumatic, indeed. I think I'm onto something. Only it wasn't a snake, Mom told me recently, but a fox. A fox makes much more sense. A fox could cause frenzy in a chicken coop. A snake, well, couldn't. After 2 or 3 little chicks, a snake would look like a sock stuffed with tennis balls. It would be too sluggish and protuberant to slither back through the wire. Slaughtering 11 chicks would require a whole den of snakes. I have to remind myself of this, because for me, it has always been a large brown snake pouring itself through the chicken wire and lurking in the straw until the first innocent blundered near. I should have a fear of foxes, vulpophobia. But I'm not afraid of foxes. I'm not afraid of spiders. I'm not afraid of rats. I'm not afraid of bats. I'm not afraid of needles. I'm not afraid of earthquakes. I'm not afraid of worms. I'm not afraid of germs. I'm not afraid of funerals. I'm not afraid of meteors. I'm not afraid of dogs. I'm not afraid of God. I'm not afraid of Satan. I'm not afraid of turbans. I'm not afraid to fly. I'm not afraid of to die. I'm not afraid to be bitten. I'm not afraid of the venom. It's something else. So I'm telling you all of that, both to let you know that I'm not just a scaredy cat, that this is a specific thing. Also, I'm just having some fun with language, obviously. But here we come to what is an important point to me. And here's where the question changes. We've hit a dead end. I can't just look into my history and figure out where it began. I have to change the question. So the next question, if it's not about the venom, what is it? What is it about snakes that scares me so badly? So this leads me to look at what is simply unique about snakes as I'm trying to figure it out, because I don't have the answer. They are shapeshifters. Snakes materialize out of nothing, ordinary rocks, twigs, and leaves, reminding us that perception is untrustworthy. You can never tell just how long a snake is, where its body begins and ends. They may fold themselves 3 times, 6 times, a dozen times. They move like water and shine like grease, but their skin is dry as dust. Snakes are deception, surprise, mutability. They violate the predictable. Snakes are agents of chaos. That's a clue. And I recognize it as a clue immediately when I get there. I'm finding characteristics about snakes that are in fact frightening and traumatic, things that are deceptive, that are surprising, that change, that are unreliable. So then I think, this is the first solid lead. Whatever it is that is causing this phobia has to do with these qualities. And I'm just taking a moment just taking a moment to reinforce the stakes. And this is just, I don't have to read all of this, but this is a moment where my friend picks up a harmless garter snake. She's totally unafraid of it, right? Because it's just a garter snake. And I have a completely unreasonable fear. I'm basically hyperventilating. And again, I'm going to use vivid imagery to convey emotion. It is the most effective way to convey emotion, right? How can I tell her that the image of that strange nimble body writhing between the tines, she's picked it up on a rake, will cycle on repeat through my brain for weeks. Even if I look away, I will know that it happened. The only thing worse than a snake on the ground is a snake off the ground, flying snakes and falling snakes and climbing snakes and swimming snakes. This is just a pause to reset the stakes and reinforce the stakes. And you'll see that in a whodunit as well. Back to the question. And I want you to notice that as I'm changing questions, this is the 5th question I'm asking. I'm not answering the prior question. So what I want to convey is that it's more important to ask questions than it is to answer them. And this is what goes so much in contrary to the basic kind of essay writing that we learn in school. We don't have to have the answer. We just have to ask interesting enough questions and try and show our work on the page. Diane laughs, her expression bemused. I see that she's going to do it anyway. So I rush into the barn and wait it out in the dark, hands clamped to my face. Whoa, you're a fast little guy, I hear her say to the snake. Breathe. I am ridiculous, I know that. Among my worst fears is that my horse will unwittingly step on a snake on the trail, and I'll be forced to pick a bloody segment of its body out of her hoof. If I have to pee at the barn, I open the portalet's plastic door in minute increments, worried that a snake has squeezed through a crack to bask in the rank heat. When Diane said she's afraid of snakes, she means that she's afraid of dangerous snakes, biting snakes, aggressive snakes. Delicate garter snakes don't qualify. Fear and phobia are different planets, separated by vast airless space. Here's the new question. What's the difference between fear and phobia? And answering that question leads to another clue. Snakebite is easy to avoid. Don't step on a snake, don't taunt a snake, don't threaten a snake, and it won't bite you. I often fail to notice pretty butterflies and birds because my eyes are glued to the ground. A twig lying in my path will knock my lungs into my shoes. My chances of mindlessly stepping on a snake are practically nil. Moreover, none of the snakes native to California could kill me with one bite. A perverse part of me hopes I'll get bitten so I can prove to myself that the worst case scenario isn't that bad. But venom, which is to say real danger, has nothing to do with this. When a startled snake whips into action, the ground itself appears to move. Solid becomes liquid, inanimate becomes animate. Nothing is what you think it is. Nothing is safe. Another clue. And this is the second clue leading towards unreliability, mutability, changeable things. And that's leading me to think that I'm on the trail. I keep returning to the false memory of my father's snake bite. So once you hit a couple of clues, you go back to the first question. This is also kind of classic whodunit, right? The first question is WTF is my problem. So I'm going to go back to that. And the second question is, why do I have a false memory? Now I'm armed with some information. I'm going to come back to these questions, see if I can answer them. I may be able to, I may not be able to. I keep returning to the false memory of my father's snake bite. A grand mal epileptic with a penchant for going off his meds, he was profoundly unreliable and prone to sudden dramatic changes. He took LSD and peyote. He changed his name and then changed it back. When I was 9, he suffered a psychotic break, shaved all the hair off his body and face, and plucked his eyelashes out. That was cute. Because my father's instability disturbed me, I believed him snake bit, as if all things not what they seemed must be touched by snakes. Starting to make connections. Next question. What am I getting out of this obsession? Now I'm kind of figuring it out, right? So what am I getting out of it? In dreams, I will walk gauntlets of coiled snakes. Snakes tangle in my hair. They bite my hands or my feet. They wriggle into my open mouth. I find snakes in my bed, in the ocean, in the car, in the sky. They invade good dreams and bad. Sometimes they're beautiful. At least one snake lurks in every dream I remember, which is to say that if I have a dream without a snake, it's forgettable, unimportant. Isn't this persistent terror also a hope, also a call? By obsessing, I keep them close and present. inflating the importance of these humble belly-walking creatures beyond all reason. Again, I think of my father, how parenthood temporarily transforms a half-broken person into a sort of god whose thoughtless gestures define his child's world. It's unfair to be a parent, unfair to be a child. And what did any snake ever do to me? Nothing. I'm the stalker, right? This takes us to the next question. What am I getting out of this obsession? In personal essays, self-interrogation is totally key. So when I say that your questions are changing in personal essay and memoir, your questions can be directed inward, like a whodunit is directed outward. A personal essay is often directed inward. So you're tunneling into your own mind to figure out a mystery. And this has led me to a confession, which is that I'm kind of enamored with snakes. I'm terrified of them, but I'm obsessed. I'm clearly obsessed. And that's the confession. Like, that's the moment in Scooby-Doo where the mask is pulled off of the stalker and surprise, it's me, right? Kevin and I are at Diamond Caverns in Cave City, Kentucky, approaching the visitor center to purchase tickets for a cave tour. A jet black snake, 4 feet long, whips across the footpath in front of me and slips into the center's decorative garden. I spin, making guttural noises, and speed walk in the other direction. My husband grabs my shoulder, hoping to comfort me, but I cringe away from his hand. I feel turned inside out, as if my organs suddenly pulsed on the outside. I hyperventilate in the parking lot until Kevin promises the snake is gone. After the tour, I look out at the garden through a plate glass window. Between plants, I see what looks like a looped black hose, but I know. I stand with my nose centimeters from the glass and watch the liquid black body wind through the flowers. It seems to touch everything, to be everywhere at once. In the afternoon sun, it looks dipped in oil. The snake pauses and lifts its head out of a bed of tulips. The face and neck are surprisingly delicate for such a hefty body. Maybe it's because of the pink tulips, but it strikes me as female. I watch her taste the air with her tiny vibrating tongue. The snake has seen or heard or felt me watching. She watches me back with keen black eyes. I've never subscribed to the idea that animals are dumb, nobody home, driven by mindless instinct. Yet this is the first time I've sensed a snake's intelligence. She's just going about her afternoon business, maybe hoping to score a meal, while soaking up enough sun to stay mobile at night when she must avoid the owls. She is herself, and I am myself, and we have nothing to do with each other. My exhalations have fogged the glass, but I notice that I'm breathing calmly. I'm seeing past my own trickery, how I use snakes as scapegoats for terrors I will not face, how they are my favorite shield. The phobia does not end with this. Walking through grass will always make my blood hammer, but I've been granted a reprieve here, a moment of empathy for this she-snake, and with that, compassion for my most stubborn parts, the parts that refuse to mend. So it ends in a final revelation and a moment of clarity. Notice that this moment of clarity and this final revelation don't necessarily answer all the questions I asked. Did I answer all of them? Did I answer any of them? Probably some. The inciting question, WTF is my problem. A false memory equals a mystery. So here we're on, we have an essay. Where did the false memory come from? That was the next question. That was a dead end. When did the phobia begin? That was a red herring. It took me to a red herring. Okay, so what's unique about snakes? Aha, a clue I find in that section. What's the difference between fear and phobia? Now I'm hot on the trail and I know it. What do I get out of being phobic? And that's where I confess. Am I willing to let go? That's the moment of clarity. So I didn't answer all of these questions. I didn't answer when it began. I didn't answer where the false memory came from. I didn't figure that out. But asking them moved my plot forward. So that's what I want you to notice. It's the act of asking the questions and trying, you know, you got to try to answer them, but that's what moves the plot. I meant to show this at the beginning. Sorry to flip through like this. Where did it go? Oh, I had a quote for you. Maybe I can just read it. This is from one of my favorite writing books, which is David Corbett's The Art of Character. And he says, I think this is really interesting. You know, everyone knows that the point is to, that we have to know what a character is desiring on every page, right? For an active protagonist, everyone knows we have to know what the character wants. But Corbett introduces something more interesting than that. He says, we often want what we can't have or would be better off without. Sometimes we don't recognize what it is we're really longing for until someone or something happens along to deliver a swift kick in the teeth, jarring us out of our stupor. Perhaps we actively suppress, deny, or in some other way hide from what we need. Our desires may be layered or nested, with one used to veil another we secretly want more, but are too shy, too remiss, too riddled with doubt, or scarred by previous failure to pursue. It may be even the case that the real object is desire is intrinsically ineffable. So I think it's a really interesting question. I mean, it's a really interesting place to start or to look at, that as you're going into personal essay and you're going into memoir, that you can allow those shifts to happen. You can allow it to start with a mystery and then allow it to become bigger and more surprising than what you thought. So the piece may not even be about what you think it is. Oh, there's my quote that I wanted. Okay, so good personal writing can peel back layers of self-deception. And this is one of the reasons that we do it. This is why we do personal writing from an emotional, psychological standpoint. We can really achieve a lot of growth. But it's also very exciting to read, you know? So the rest of that quote, now that I found it, is that such stories are marked by two layers of conflict. One, the dramatic action as the protagonist pursues the misbegotten object of desire he's convinced he wants. And two, the dramatic tension created as the increasingly unsatisfactory results of his quest slam him again and again into the key truth he's trying to avoid. He wants something else. Which is really what happened in this essay. Back to the end. Sorry to flip around like this. So here are some tips. Your inciting question should be one you honestly don't know the answer to, or it won't feel authentic. Think of it as a whodunit. You might be the sleuth and the criminal, as I was in this case. Convey the stakes through scene and vivid imagery. When you hit a dead end, try a different question and let that move your plot. It's not a failure. Allow your confession and mistakes to unfold on the page so that the reader can experience that with you. When you've found some clues, return to your inciting question. Have you made progress? Conclusion, no need to tie it up with a bow, but you should take stock of any progress you've made. So it's really important to realize that you don't have to answer the questions you ask. I know I've said that a couple times. So here are some authors who I admire who use these tools. Some of my favorite self-interrogations. There are many, many more. And I will send these to you so that you can look at them later. I think we're probably coming up on time for questions.
We're good. When we get ready for questions though, excuse me, if you could stop sharing your screen and then we can see the questions easier.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we switch into that now? We'll go to some questions and then I'm sure that'll get me talking more. But some of my favorite self-interrogations, of course, the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Think about how her questions change. And when she hits roadblocks, there's this great memoiristic, even though it's not a traditional memoir by any means, but there's this great memoiristic plot where she's trying to approach the question and has all of these evolving questions about the ethics of science. And it just gets more and more interesting the more she runs into roadblocks. The Fact of a Body is one of my very favorites, so beautiful. How to Be Anti-Racist, a lot of us are reading that now. Inheritance, The Empathy Exams, The Heart and Other Monsters is a wonderful new book out this year. This one's really great because the whole book is structured around this idea. She goes at her sister has committed suicide, we think, or overdosed, and she goes and approaches the death of her sister from all these different angles, and it's like this. It's like the facets of a gemstone. She tries looking at it this way and then that way and then this way because something about it is bothering her. And then like halfway through the book, it explodes into a literal murder mystery. And it comes as a complete surprise when you get there, and it's really exciting. It's just a wonderful new book. Again, a victim of COVID. My Father, the Pornographer, oh my God. Those are very uncomfortable questions that he has to ask, and I love it. In the Dream House, a lot of us are reading this these days. Wiving is another new memoir, really beautiful. And Charles D'Ambrosio is one of my favorites for letting his essays kind of ramble as the questions change. In fact, the essay Loitering, the title essay of that collection, it's fabulous for characterization, and it's also a great one to look at for the plot that we think we're reading about is not the actual plot of the essay. It becomes about his weird psychology, and it's really lovely. And the personal writings of Joan Didion, Patron Saint of the Unanswered Question. She never bothers to answer her questions. So I'm going to stop the share and let's talk a little bit.
Okay, so
right.
Jenny and I will be fielding the questions for you.
Okay. We have a lot in the chat. I don't know if I should go through these or if people want to.
We'll go through. Some of them are just asking questions about how to take screenshots and stuff. But,
sure.
So Jody says, I have to tell you, Alia, that after reading the essay last night, my dreams were fraught with snakes. So scary. It's like I took on your phobia.
Sorry.
Jenny asked, do you have a purpose in mind for this essay as you were writing? What did you do with it once it was finished?
Okay, yeah. So, well, the point I'm trying to make with these evolving questions is that my purpose in writing the essay kept changing. And the beauty of this is that you just go with it, right? So I began the essay because of that experience, walking in Joshua Tree. And my friends that I'm with are super nice people. They're totally compassionate, but they're just like dealing with the actual danger at hand. Whereas I'm having a complete psychological meltdown. I've got snot running into my mouth. I'm sobbing, and it's just sheer terror for me. So there's a big difference between how the people around me react and how I react. So my purpose in writing the essay, I didn't know where I was going to end up, was to try to figure out what is wrong with me that I can't walk down a path, without falling to pieces. And then the purpose changed because because of running into those roadblocks. Each time I run into a dead end, the purpose changes. Well, there's something else here, and it just got more and more interesting. I mean, when I really knew I had an essay was toward the beginning when I asked my dad about getting bit, and I thought it was going to be fairly straightforward. I have a phobia because my dad got bit when I was a kid. And I knew I had an essay because I realized I'd invented a false memory, which is disturbing, So then I was writing to figure that out. What did I do with it at the end? Rewrote it a whole bunch of times to clean up that structure. Of course, I went down more false paths than I included. So, in the end, you pare it down. And then it went to 3-penny review and on from there.
Great, thank you for answering that. Kay asks, she says that creative writing instruction books recommend the hero's journey where at the end there's resolution. People tell me they wouldn't read a book if it doesn't end with redemption, especially if the character has suffered. I'm writing a memoir and playing around with the idea of not using the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, don't use it. It's useful for some things, sure, but I actually find redemption stories a little bit boring in general. It's got to have a lot more going on than that. I don't know what you're working with. I'm also sort of a grim person. I enjoy unhappy endings, and I really enjoy ambiguous endings. So some of the best essays and books end with a question. It's like you get to the end and you're just left with yet another question. And isn't that like life? I mean, I find that to be very relatable, but also really exciting to read. It's the universe is infinite. Why do we have to wrap things up? So some people get attached to those ideas, but I find them rather dull. It's my opinion.
Laura says, wonderful essay. Did you use the same process for your full-length book? And could you talk about how that played out over the longer term years of working on it?
Yeah. I mean, I try. So in the many years of working on this, I had not figured out that process yet. And like I say, this took me 12 years, and a lot of those were false attempts. And I didn't know what to do when I hit barriers. And so I'd get stuck and I'd put it down and it kept changing shape, and I couldn't find the through line. And I had so many different attempts. I can't tell you how many times the voice changed, the structure changed. But where do I start? Where do I end? What am I focusing on? I wrote so many extra pages. I cannot even begin to tell you. It was probably 1,000 pages. And I wrote this essay, Snakebit, in 2016, many years into poking at home baked. But it was a breakthrough for me because I realized I realized that the questions could change, that you didn't have to have this really clear arc. And it helped me figure out finally the through line and identify where the gravity was. I wish I had done it this way from beginning to end. It probably would have taken less time. I am now working on my second book, and I'm struggling to figure out what the through line is and what the pressing questions are, but I'm trying. So tips aren't gonna, make things easy. They're things that we can try that are sometimes helpful. Unfortunately, writing is just never easy. I don't know what to say about that.
Boy, that's the truth.
Uh-huh.
Amanda shared a quote with us that kind of sums up what you're talking about. She said, "This reminds me of Rilke. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language."
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Amanda. Hi, I didn't know you were coming. Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to pester you to send me that later. That's fantastic.
Cleo asks, she says, there was an interesting choice of word near the beginning in one of the conversations with your dad. I think you wrote that your conversation was clotted with jokes. I thought clotted gave me an image that the jokes were not really funny because of the image of blood clotting, that the veins are like snakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Part of this, and also what Corbett is talking about with having there be, what you think you want is not what you want. There are all these clues that you leave yourself along the way. And so part of why you ask different questions is to try to break through. I think and this is, again, one of the things that's really beautiful about personal writing. We keep secrets from ourselves. If we knew ourselves perfectly, there would be nothing to write about. But we're constantly hiding things from ourselves, and especially when you've got some trauma at some point, as I think we all do, and personal writing approaches the trauma. Well, we tell ourselves stories, and we tell ourselves stories from the time that we're little children, and those stories solidify and they deepen. So at some point, I told myself a story about my dad getting bit by a snake. And I believed it. I convinced myself of that story because it made more sense than what was behind it. And it was easier to confront. I could be afraid of snakes easier than I could be afraid of my father being psychologically unstable. You know, so we all have these scapegoats and we trick ourselves. Well, there comes a point in your maturity and in your maturity as a writer where you can begin to take those stories apart. And that is really the beauty of personal essay, and especially approaching it in this method, is that dismantling of the artifice that we have in our own brains. And it's very freeing when you have a breakthrough like this. It can be life-changing, and for me it was. So obviously this is deep therapy here. I did not know where I was going to end up when I started. But I will say that I wrote that scene and that conversation with my dad early on. And I wrote that long before I knew what the essay was going to be about. So, you know, the subconscious comes through. And I knew there was something wrong with our conversations. And that the jokes were not real intimacy, say. I mean, that's what I mean when I'm laying that clue that it's clotted, that our conversation is clotted with jokes. The jokes are drowning out the true discord between us. And they're also protecting us from intimacy, right? But I didn't know that when I wrote it. So that's what's so interesting, is like once you start to figure out where you're going, you go back to the original work and you see if you've left yourself breadcrumbs. It's all about like tricking your mind into revealing itself, which is frustrating. We should just be able to, we should just be able to cut through our own bowl. But in fact, it's more complex than that.
Rachel says, this is immensely helpful. Thank you. I wonder when the question is unanswerable, for example, coming to terms with the loss of a loved one, how the writer can make the journey interesting to the reader.
Yeah, that's really what I'm talking about. It's not necessary to answer the questions that you ask. It is enough to ask the question. But just asking, obviously just asking a question on a blank page is not interesting. It's the attempt to answer that becomes the story, right? The attempt. It doesn't matter if you come to a conclusion. And the structure that I'm suggesting of allowing the question to change and letting those changes move your plot forward, it doesn't excuse you from trying to answer the question, but it excuses you from answering it, because really the point is to look at how our questions are hiding more interesting questions, like the Rilke's locked door, right? We're protecting ourselves. So the more that you can strip down, you come to something more interesting. So I often say that the point of an essay is not to answer a question. The point of an essay is to find the most interesting question to ask and ask it.
Jody wants to know, what was the through line for Home Baked?
Well, it became, for me, ultimately, to put it in the one sentence story, it became about following the movement. This is on the kind of the broader, the macro, following the movement of marijuana from party drug to palliative medicine vis-a-vis the AIDS crisis. And all of that is composed of many stories. There's a lot of oral history in it, and it tells many people's stories. But that ultimately is the through line, is watching that unfold. It took me a long time to get there, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Marge, and I hope I said your name right, she asked, how do you assess whether an utterance can stay in the subtext or should be explicit in the text? Traumatic indeed. Is it a beat, a segue, or an emphasis?
That was a segue. That was a segue. I'm not sure at what point I wrote that, but I think that I'm pretty sure that I wrote that scene after having the conversation with my mom, where she told me that it was a fox and not a snake. So when I get to actually writing it, I already have realized that it's a red herring, though I don't know where it's going next. And so I mean, it was a really earnest question for me. I really did not go into this understanding where the phobia was coming from. And I would come to this moment, and that's the second one where I come to a moment and like, oh, this makes sense. It was because of this. And yet again, I have lied to myself. So, you know, yeah, that's traumatic, but that's not what happened. So that was a segue. Deciding what stays in and what goes, I mean, it's just editing. If you can leave something subtextual, it's better. Like, you want to have just enough, right? So editing, writing groups are really helpful. If you can keep things mysterious, do, but you have to have enough information for it to be engaging at every point, so that the speed at which you release details, I think some of it is instinctual, and if it's not coming instinctually, it's editing. So, you know, some of that is like going back to the piece once you've found the through line and figuring out how to time those releases of information in the most exciting way.
Joan asks, did you keep journals as a child or as an adult? And do you refer to those for your memory or your stories?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wish I did. I never was in the habit of keeping journals, and it's so regrettable now. I wish I had all that information. So no, but I didn't know that I wanted to write memoir. And in fact, I'm a very reluctant, always have been very reluctant about writing memoir. And what got me interested in writing memoir was figuring out, was really this kind of work. It might have even been this essay, now that I think about it. Because it was such a powerful experience to persistently interrogate until there was this new understanding of self, was such a powerful and healing experience for me. And I kept, okay, this is something I want to do. But I was never just interested in telling my story like, oh, I'm so interesting. So unfortunately, I did not keep journals. I do a lot of interviewing always. And with interviewing, in the same way that you don't trust your own statements, don't trust anything anybody says. But it's the lies and misstatements are often as interesting as the truth, right? And what we withhold, what we don't say, what we don't remember is often more revealing of character than what we do say, what we do remember. So figuring those things out, telling multiple versions of a story, I do that a lot in Home Baked. And this was really problematic, or challenging, I'll say, because I'm not even born until halfway through the story. So it's not really drawn from my own memory very much. There are parts of it that are. But even when it is, I don't trust myself. So it was about interviewing, you know, I would interview multiple people about a scene, an event. And then I would go to the historical records and newspaper records and compare all that stuff. And when it doesn't match up, that's part of the book. That's part of the story. So I'm a big fan of leaving the confusion on the page. I just think it's exciting. And look at Leslie Jameson's essays in the empathy exams. She's so good at that. She's always like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I think. Let me try it this way. She's always doubting her own assumptions. And it's such an exciting thing to read.
Diane says, your imagery is so brilliantly vivid. Do you have any tips for improving descriptive writing skills?
Just being very specific and trying to notice the uncommon details. I mean, try and obviously you want to try and picture something in your mind very clearly as you're writing about it. Try and picture it, and then think about a less common detail to describe it. Thank you. So, you know, if you're going to describe a snake, you say, oh, it was a green snake on the ground. Or or you can talk about specific scale, or you can talk about the specific, right? So the more specific you get with your imagery, the better it is. And I'll often pull out any adjectives or any descriptors that seem common. And it's not about using $5 words or fancy language. It's about coming up with a sentence that's a mouthful, that's interesting, that's new, that we haven't read before. Have I read this sentence before? Yeah, cut it. I mean, come up with something better. And all the senses, you know, your touch, your smell, your taste, blah, blah, blah. Engage everything. And for conveying fear and any emotion, really, for conveying emotion, sometimes, you know, I was scared. That's not that interesting to read, but if you can say, you know, I use at a point, I'm wearing footy pajamas and they're too tight on me. My toes are curling in the feet of the pajamas, and it's constrictive. Well, that's good snake imagery, and it's also very uncomfortable. So making the reader picture that is very uncomfortable. Or if you're going to, and that creates discomfort, you know, that creates fear and discomfort for the reader as well. So as much of that kind of stuff as you can do. Or in the moment where we're in Kentucky towards the end and there's the big black snake, I don't just want to say I'm hyperventilating. I do say that, but I don't just want to say that because that's not that interesting. But I think the way I put it is that it feels like my organs I've been turned inside out and my organs are on the outside. So just trying to be really specific and original, and feelings of being in body, you know, when you get a fright, what does it feel like? For me, it feels like my lungs are falling into my feet, not just my heart's pounding. You know, try and think of something physical, something weird, something different. Yeah.
Cleo has a comment for you. She said one thing she loved in Home Baked was the description of your father's epilepsy as a spiritual experience, because of which part the brain was affected. And it reminded me of the epilepsy of Van Gogh, who reports spiritual experiences, and his paintings are highly spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I got very interested in that too, and really where I started looking at it that way was in another essay that I wrote about this time. That when I actually wrote while I was trying to figure out the snake part, and for a while it was one essay, and there was too much going on. I was trying to figure out too much at the same time, and they got divided. And so there's a kind of a companion essay to this one, really. Because I realized that my questions were leading me in opposite directions, if that makes any sense. So I thought I was writing one essay and it ended up being two. But the other one is about his epilepsy and trying to understand what he sees in it, because he refuses off and on throughout my childhood. He goes off his medications. He refuses to take his medications, and trying to understand from an empathetic point of view. He's not just being irresponsible. It is irresponsible, but that's not all it is, because he's also looking for something. So trying to understand the outward plot and the inward plot. Now I'm trying to put myself in my father's position. So we can do this with other characters as well, and we can do this in fiction as well, is to think about what they think they want versus what they really want. You know, so with my dad, looking at his epilepsy through a lens of complex desire, he's edging toward, he's trying to edge, like he's trying to get the inspiring aura that also Dostoevsky was really into. And he was also an epileptic. It's a kind of temporal lobe epilepsy. It happens in a particular part of the brain, and often gives people feelings of spiritual revelation. And so, you know, there's this part of it that's very sexy to him. So trying to understand that was really interesting to me, and propelled me a long way. Did a lot of the work.
Be quiet. I'm moderating questions now. Shut my door, please.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I was muted by mistake. Dennis asked, what is your background, education, and education that led to writing?
Um, well, I don't have an MFA. I actually don't have a bachelor degree. I followed a circuitous route, which is maybe shows in my writing. But I got interested in writing while traveling alone. Was actually the first time I really kept journals, and that was kind of, I haven't used any of that material, but that was what got me interested in writing as a way of understanding the world around me. And so I was in my mid-20s, and I did go back to school for creative writing, but I ended up going through a study abroad program to Cuba and stayed longer than I maybe should have, and I never went back to school. So let's see, I have done some workshops. I've been to Tin House a couple of times, SWA a couple of times, and both have been very useful to me. And I have a writing group that I've been involved with for, it's going on 12 years now. And we do really deep critique, line edits. It's a small, intimate group of very skilled editors. And that is, it's like my bi-monthly MFA workshop. So that has been, I can't even tell you how much I've learned from the people I work with in my writing group.
And that was actually the next question. So I'm going to go on further. We've got about, we're going to be done here at 11, well, in 7 minutes for those of you in different parts of the world. So in about 7 minutes. So if you have any more questions, we have a little bit of time for more. Jenny asks, what is your writing discipline?
Well, I don't keep to a firm schedule, but I am diligent. So I work, I work most days in some way, and I don't know. I'm just kind of self-motivated in that way, and I really use this writing group to set deadlines, and that's really important for me. So we meet twice a month, every month, pretty much without fail, and each person in the group, it's a small group, and we all have an opportunity to submit 5,000 words of material each time. So it's a good amount of reading. We have to give each other that. We have to be generous with each other. But this gives me, so I basically have a new chapter or essay, hell or high water, every other week. And that keeps me on schedule. And then when I sold Home Baked on proposal and had a year to finish it, I was just working like a maniac, 16 hours a day out of sheer terror.
How many submissions did it take for your essay to be published? Did you use an agent?
No, I've not. I've never had an agent sell an essay. He just doesn't do that. It would be nice if he did. This one was published really quickly by the time I figured it out. I did work on it for several months before I submitted it, and then Threepenny was the first place I submitted. But I do have essays that I've submitted 30 different places before they landed. This one happened to be smooth.
How did you find your writing group members? Mandy asks.
It's a gradual process over time. I mean, we started a long time ago. So 20, oh gosh, we started 12 years ago. The member who's been in it the longest, Jackie, I found her through Craigslist, unbelievably. But often I'll when there's an opening, I will, if I don't know through word of mouth, so I already have somebody in mind, I will sometimes occasionally post in a writer focus group on Facebook, but then you have to sort through a lot of responses. I have found it important for this group. We have people submit work before they come to the group. It's not just open to anybody. We have to make sure that the work is, up to the level that we're working in, basically. You want to have people at approximately your level or better, as much as possible. And so we'll look at work beforehand and then have people come 2 or 3 times before they're officially invited into the group, because again, it's a small group, 5 people, sometimes 6, and we want to keep it really focused to a core that's going to be producing regularly. We need people who are producing every other week also, or approximately every other week. So not everyone works that quickly or diligently. You know, you want to find a group of serious people. But yeah, posting in your community. You could probably find a writing group out of the writers in this room, I'm quite sure. And these days we're all meeting on Skype or Zoom anyway, so you don't have to be in the same geographic location, which has always been one of the more challenging aspects of it.
Okay, we have 3 more questions and then that's it. So go ahead, Jenny, do you want to take the first one?
Sure.
From Marcy.
Marcy asks, do you find writing retreats essential to getting away from your day-to-day life?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. And I'm really, and in fact, I know Marcy because she has offered up her a cottage on her vineyard through the Writing Between the Vines retreat, which I did with 2 writer friends a couple of years ago, and it was fabulous. So yes, I normally try to go spend at least a month or 2 at a retreat every year. I'm fortunate that I have an office with a door I can close and a supportive spouse who doesn't mind me working on this all the time. But still taking the work into privacy, into a private space of uninterrupted focus, I find to be crucial. And if like this year there are all the big residencies are closed, and so I find places to house it. I'm going up to a friend's in Bishop while she's on a trip in a couple of weeks so that I can isolate. Especially with like the deep heavy work, if you're doing heavy psychological work, or a really big structural edit, something that you have to really dig into and inhabit in order to fix. It's great to be able to work long days and also just sleep and wake up and continue working and not have any other thoughts except for the work. It's pretty important.
Anna asks, did you pitch the essay to Threepenny first? And would you mind speaking, or would you speak about pitching to publications?
Sure. And also, Anna, thank you so much for arranging for me to come here. I really appreciate it. This one, no, Threepenny doesn't take pitches. It's a literary journal, and a lot of the literary journals don't take pitches. So yeah. But they're a really nice one to submit to because, you know, they're prestigious and all that, but they get back to you quickly. It's like a 3-week window. They ask that you not simultaneously submit, but they're back to you quickly. So it's like, I got in the habit of sending everything to Threepenny before other places because I wanted to get into it. So this is not the first piece I've sent them. Pitching, I suck at pitching. I'm so the wrong person to ask. I'm terrible at it. I hate pitching. Yeah, other people are much better at this. One normally would write the pitch before writing the essays, but I'm just so bad at it. I usually end up writing the essay first, and it's a don't do what I do. It's not the way to go.
Mary Rose has a similar question. She said, any tips regarding publishing and vetting proposals and finding an agent?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to sell a book on proposal, there's just so much work that goes into that before you try to look for an agent. So you want to really have your stuff together. You want to have your book together so that you have the best shot possible. Proposals can take several months and a lot of writing. I probably had approximately half of Home Baked written in the form that once I figured out what I was trying to do, I had it basically in the form that I wanted to accomplish before I wrote the proposal. They had to get far enough into the story that I knew where it was going. and you have to be able to map out your chapters and have a really clear idea of what your project is before you sell it, unless you're a huge name or your subject matter is just so hot that somebody is going to take it on a one-page synopsis or a one-page pitch. But if you to go the traditional route and write a proposal, get an agent, then do the work, you have to do a lot of thinking and working beforehand. Turn to your community, talk to writers, the people you know who have sold books on proposal. Ask if they'll show you their proposal. I've shared the proposal for Home Baked with people, and if anybody is at a point where they are really ready to look at that, I would share it with you at this point. I mean, it's out, right? What is there to lose? I'm happy to share that. So yeah, turn to your community. And I would say also turn to your community when you're ready to find an agent, because while it is most certainly possible to find an agent cold, I am a fan of getting out of slush if you can. So I did start with friends agents, I started with a small group of agents of friends who did nonfiction books, and I like, you see, did they handle it well? Is the book in the general wheelhouse that my book is? And ask if they'll introduce you to their agent. I have introduced several people to my agent. He hasn't picked any of them up yet, but the introduction gets you a faster response than going through slush. So.
And the last one, Marcy, who Alia just mentioned, Writing Between the Vines. If you look in the chat, she said, I just want to invite attendees to visit the Writing Between the Vines website to sign up for our mailing list with details on our writing retreat. So it's writingbetweenthevines.org, and it's going to be in the chat until we shut this off for a couple seconds. So Alia, thank you so much. Thank you for accepting our invitation to speak. I know, like Anna said, she got a hold of me and she said, we've got to get this person. So anyway, I'm really glad we did invite you and that you spoke, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you have more questions, Alia had left her email, and also within about 24 hours or less, no promises, but within 24 hours, we'll have the recording link up on our website. And so you can go back to writersofkern.com/events, and you should be able to find it there if you want to go back and take notes or screenshots or anything like that. And don't forget, next month, the Eventbrite registration will be going up very soon after this meeting. We try to just do one at a time. So if you're interested in the next one, just keep an eye out. If you, I don't know if you like it or subscribe to Writers of Kern, then you'll get those notices as soon as we put the events up. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alia. Thank you, Jenny, and everybody else that helped today. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye.
you for coming, everyone. Thank you, Joan. And thank you, Annis.